Well, today's top headline, what a Monday Night Raw we just had last night. The WWE returned to live television. We will get into the results later on in this broadcast, but the WWE returned to live TV. They had Monday Night Raw live from the USA Network. They are going to have WWE NXT and WWE Friday Night SmackDown live this week, despite the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. They will continue to air from closed sets with limited personnel at the empty WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, and at the NXT Arena in Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida. The WWE returning to live TV reportedly had to do with their contracts with NBC Universal and Fox. My take on this is very simple. The WWE clearly has something that we don't know about, whether it be contracts or Vince McMahon worried that they could break their contract, them being the television networks, that they are going to return to live TV. I think we should be thankful that we're getting live TV, and I think that should be the end of this discussion. I do feel for all the talent and crew involved. This is World Wrestling Entertainment. The show stops for nobody, as that has been blatantly evident in everything that they have done and will continue to do. And I think it's very noble of them to give us live entertainment week after week. The XFL closes its doors and files for bankruptcy. The XFL filed for bankruptcy. TMZ Sports reported that the league lost out on tens of millions of dollars in revenue due to the rest of the regular season and planned playoff games being canceled, and that the filing occurred when it did to maximize its return to the investors. Listen, the XFL closed its doors because they didn't have any television to produce any sort of ratings for this brand of football, which in the long term, in my opinion, was where this was going. The WWE was recently shown that they have a 23.5% stake of Class B stock in this company when it was supposed to be two separate entities. But the XFL closed. I think that if had they continued, they probably would have gotten enough TV ratings to warrant a television deal, and I think the XFL would still be here to this day. But the XFL closing its door makes complete and utter sense just because there's no television, there's no live games, there's no fans, there's no football. The Undertaker weighs in on the Firefly Funhouse match. The Undertaker appeared on 9 Line Apparel's Instagram live broadcast. The WWE legend The Undertaker revealed his thoughts on the offbeat Firefly Funhouse match at WrestleMania 36. The Undertaker stated, "It was different to me. It was entertaining. It made you think. It puts you in a state like, okay, what are they going to do now?" The Undertaker also said, again, I think for the circumstances, I think it worked. Can I give you all the nuances of the match? No, because I wasn't there and I don't know. I don't know the whole psychology of it. He stated, but for this year's WrestleMania and the things and the parameters that had on us, I thought it worked. And you didn't take your eyes off of it because you didn't know what was coming next. He said, definitely not traditional, and I don't know if you'll ever see another one. Or if you do, it would probably be completely and utterly different. But I don't know, man. Sometimes you just make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what. The Undertaker is spot on here, in my opinion. He nails it. For what we were given, it was fantastic. There are many different theories, many different starts and ends of where this is. My opinion is it's the mind of Bray Wyatt, the insecurities of John Cena, and them colliding. And it's a fantastic match, or a segment if you want to call it, because there really was no match, and you should all go back and watch it. But The Undertaker's spot on here, and he also knows that anything that they can do that doesn't involve too much physicality in this year's WrestleMania should be praised. And it was. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, weighs in on if he watches AEW and his love for professional wrestling. Dwayne Johnson went live last night on Instagram and took part in a Q&A with fans from across the world. The Rock was asked if he watched AEW, and his response was, yes, I do watch AEW, The Rock revealed. Of course I do. I'm very happy for the success of the company because it's always a good thing and it creates a hunger. All competition is good competition. He's not wrong there. And I don't think this needs to be made out more than what it is. The Rock is basically just saying, I watch professional wrestling. I mean, what professional wrestler doesn't probably tune into the new competition or any sort of competition? This is not something where people should, get all excited about that The Rock watches AEW. He's going to AEW. The Rock was just answering a question from a fan about his love for professional wrestling, which he said, I love wrestling. I love professional wrestling. I miss it. I love creating with the professional wrestlers that I had a great chemistry with, etc., etc. Again, I don't really think this is a news headline. I do think that it's something we should talk about, but I just think it's The Rock saying, hey, listen, yeah, I watch AEW, and I'm happy that there's competition for WWE because it makes everybody and everyone else's product better. The WWE has come to the release of the Revival. This has been a long time coming, it seems. The WWE announced that they have released both Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder of the Revival. They noted that the release was immediate, indicating that they do not have a 90-day non-compete clause. It was also expected that the tag team would be leaving the company once their contract expires. Both of their contracts were originally set to expire this month. While Dawson's deal is up, Wilder's contract was extended to mid-June to make up for the time he missed due to injuries. We touched on this on Primetime Live with Damian Nelson, David Hero, myself, the Solid Monster, and Meathead, and also Josh Chernoff. I do believe this is going to be a big deal. I'm excited for the Revival to kind of get their creative freedom and explore their options with many different options in that tag team division in AEW if they choose to go that route. They could pretty much show up anywhere and they're going to make an impact. These two are highly talented. I think the WWE dropped the ball on them. And I think that they are going to show you exactly why they are one of the best tag teams in the United States or anywhere in the world. WWE's Money in the Bank event has been canceled in Baltimore. The Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore, Maryland announced this afternoon that the 2020 Money in the Bank pay-per-view has been canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. The WWE Money in the Bank event, originally scheduled for Sunday, May 10th in Baltimore, has been canceled. Refunds are available at all points of purchase. The WWE has not announced what will happen to the pay-per-view, but this announcement comes from the arena, and it states that this is not going to happen in Baltimore. But as we saw on Monday Night Raw tonight, last night, there were a ton of qualifying matches. So last night, you see a bunch of qualifying matches for Money in the Bank. I believe that the WWE is going to hold this event at the WWE Performance Center with no fans, except for that one giant one that they made a t-shirt off of that is in the Performance Center. But I think it's good. I think the WWE needs to continue to do this. They want to stay on schedule with their pay-per-views. Hopefully we can have gatherings in August and the WWE can do SummerSlam. But I think the WWE wants to stay on schedule, and I think it's a smart thing to do because they need to. They need to continue their pace, and they need to continue to produce television because it's an escape for everybody.
We are joined now by the man they call Meathead. Meathead, how are you?
Doing good. Happy to be in your car speakers or wherever you're at. So, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. We are going to discuss the Ric Flair episode of Broken Skull Sessions. Flair touched on an array of topics. And both of these guys, I have an immense amount of respect for them, but can be very long-winded at times. And this kind of bounced all over the place, and that's pretty typical for Ric Flair. He touched on which I really want your opinion because you're a huge WCW enthusiast. Flair touched on Harley Race and The Undertaker. The Undertaker being the guy who brought back his confidence, I believe, at WrestleMania 18 in their match. But Harley Race and how he made him. Were you a fan of the NWA and WCW growing up when Flair and him were going at it?
It's funny. I think I just missed it. I came in on the back end of that. Where you see me jumping into the WCW is probably just prior to July 6, 96, right around the Mall of America show. So, where you have the Nitro happening in the middle of the mall, that's where you saw me jumping in there. Otherwise, just like every other kid, a lot of times I did grow up with WWF at the time. In this neck of the woods, I'm from Milwaukee, now in Appleton, but this is AWA country here. So, the Harley Races and the Ric Flairs have been in my lifetime, a lot longer than the WWF or, NWA, WCW days.
Do you think that Ric Flair would have been Ric Flair without Harley Race?
No. Ric Flair's got so many different influences in his life. Because if you've seen the 30 for 30 on Ric Flair, you saw that, he was going to be a football player for a while. Vern Gagne really got Ric Flair going up in Minneapolis there. But there's, in your life and in my life, we can, put these little pins into the timeline of our lives and say, this is where, I made a change. This is where I really kind of can look back and say, this is it. Harley Race, huge pin in the timeline of Ric Flair's life.
Yeah, I missed all of Harley Race's rise. I do remember him as Vader's manager in WCW. Mm-hmm. And I caught Rick when he had just jumped to WWF at the time. And I believe it was 1992. So I also didn't see much of him versus Harley Race live. I did go back and watch it, and they were great matches for the time. I was a big fan when The Undertaker, which they touched on, he had a match with him at WrestleMania 18. You can kind of tell that Ric Flair wasn't really Ric Flair. I believe he had a match with Vince at the Royal Rumble in Atlanta, and that kind of set the wheels back in motion for Ric to get into the ring, which he really didn't want to do. And then this match with The Undertaker, in my opinion, really set Ric Flair back to Ric Flair, and then they were kind of off to the races. Do you remember this match? And if you do, what was your take from this?
I do. The Royal Rumble match with Vince was the controlling interest in WWE, I believe. Vince wearing his robe. That was, or Rick was brought in. What was he? What was his title in WWF? He
was like the consortium,
something like that. He headed up a group that bought half of it. After the WCW debacle. But with Ric Flair, you're right. So you didn't see Rick being Rick as much, even though Rick had gotten on in age. Ric Flair could still do a good match. I mean, Ric Flair could carry Vince. He could carry whatever. Specifically, Vince telling Rick that, thank you, this has been an honor to work in the ring. I mean, oh my God, Ric Flair is known for the waterworks. That set him off right there.
Do you think that Ric Flair is the best WCW talent ever?
No.
Who do you think is that?
So being the WCW guy that I am, I got to watch the final match of Nitro, and he wrestled the best WCW talent of all time on that night in the main event. And that man's name is something that, actually kind of goes with my name. It's the man they call Sting.
Yeah, that's a topic for another day, but what a shame Sting never got the chance to actually have a run in WWE when he wasn't, late 40s, early 50s.
Sure.
Flair talked about the biggest draws in the business and who he considers, I guess, his Mount Rushmore. And he states Austin because of all the money he drew and the fact that he could work and can work well. Mm-hmm. He said Hogan wasn't the best worker, but I mean, Hogan put the WWE on the map. Yep. And then he said The Undertaker because of the longevity and how well he's gotten that character over. If you had to pick, we'll go with WCW because we'll keep with the theme. A WCW Mount Rushmore. Who's on it?
Sting. Sting is the biggest one on there. Sting is the one that the gift shop is located inside of.
Okay.
He didn't have a long run in there, but because of the money he drew, Bill Goldberg goes on.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. I think Goldberg has to be on the Mount Rushmore.
Right. It's not because of longevity. It's not because of how great a worker he was. The man was money. Now, Ric Flair is obviously on there. Ric Flair was WCW and carried that flag for a long time. And, there's a one-off that while we all know his name and we all know his work, and now he's a coach, Arn Anderson was WCW for a long time, too. I might throw Arn Anderson up there as well.
Wow. Okay. It's going to sound cheesy, but I agree with the Flairs, the Goldberg, and the Sting. But it might come off cheesy, but I would throw the NWO logo up there because without the NWO, because you can't. I mean, you're going to put Hogan on WWFs and WCWs. I mean, come on. I think the NWO is a group. Hall, Nash, the original NWO, Hogan, and then eventually Bischoff and DiBiase. Those guys have to be on there. And we're going to wrap this up real quick with Meathead. With WCW, what did they miss with Ric Flair? Because you could tell he was broken in this interview by what Bischoff did to him. And what did they do wrong with Ric Flair here?
So I can go back to a specific day when he returned, and I believe the show was in Charlotte. It was Fire Me. I'm already fired. Fire me. Rick got so worked up, his teeth were bleeding. There was blood coming from his mouth. Bischoff was a new school kind of guy, and Rick was an old school kind of guy. I know Rick in this interview with Stone Cold went into Wrestling Today versus Wrestling Yesterday. He felt that as a veteran, he was being disrespected. The way they misused him is that they didn't. Rick is more than happy to do business, right? So it didn't matter who Rick was working with. He will do business, and they weren't letting Rick do business. I mean, because if you think about where Bischoff was in control before the NWO started, right? But when the NWO started, he just started bringing all these names in. We talked about it on Primetime on Monday, all these names that they bring into WCW. and they didn't do business with a lot of them because it was just names to bring in. They forgot about everything else that was run. It was like they were hotshot booking every night with a new name, with a new name, with a new name. So forgetting about Ric Flair is how they did bad business with him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think WCW dropped the ball with Flair numerous ways and times when Ric Flair, like you said, could do business with anybody and really did. I mean, Ric Flair won the title 16, 17, 18, 19, however many times. And he had to have lost it that many times too. So you figure, I mean, WCW just really didn't know what they had. And like you said, they signed all these talent and they really didn't do much with them besides hotshot booking. And I think everybody needs to go back. If you haven't, go back and rewatch this because I watched it once and I had to watch it again. There's so many nuggets of information here. And that's why I wanted to talk to Meathead because he is the WCW guy. And for a portion of my wrestling career or my wrestling fandom, I did not watch WCW live. I would watch it, maybe the next night after I taped it. So for me, it was interesting to see how Rick broke down his WCW career. And I think you're 100% right. They missed the ball on him. If there was one WCW match that Ric Flair's in, what match would that be that you suggest they watch? I guess besides the last Nitro match with Sting.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I didn't have that one prepared. I'm going through because again, Rick was pulled off of TV a lot in my particular run. The Bischoff match was terrible. Rick did have a Hogan run with where they kind of flipped, actually going heel to face, face to heel. There is a cage match that they did that was not bad. I mean, it was WCW. Everybody was kind of dumping on him at the time, but there was a Hogan Flair match in a cage. I want to say like a Super Brawl in '99, somewhere around there, where it wasn't bad. But I mean, honestly, go look at Flair and Savage if you can find it in the WCW archives. You're going to get a winner every time.
Yeah, they seem like they just. I agree. I've watched that, and I've watched even his match with Brett. I mean, Flair could work with anybody, and he, in my opinion, probably is either number 1 or 2 of the best workers in the business. And it's a shame his recent health issues, but I'm happy to see how he has rebounded, and I'm sure for you, being the WCW guy that you are, that Ric Flair was probably somebody that you grew up loving and probably still continue to love to this day.
I do, and I just hope that he gets the financial situations that he's gotten himself in. See, I've actually gotten to talk to Rick for about 30 seconds, but it was one of the best 30 seconds of my life. Hey, champ, how you doing? And if you go back in the archives, it's probably not there because I think it was pre-show, but on pay-per-view, I am shaking Ric Flair's hand because I was in the aisle. Same day.
There you go. Walk the aisle, shake hands in the aisle. That is the man they call Meathead. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, he's going to be on here more often than not. This is our debut episode. We're trying to get everything in that we possibly can that was topical. So, again, we went back in history a little bit here, but now we are touching on everything that happened on this Broken Skull Sessions. And I thank you for your input. It is extremely important. And, again, WCW has come and gone, but it seems as if their memory is going to live on forever, especially with the WCW network, the WWE network.
That's the way it should have went, was the WCW network, but, be it as it may.
I set that one up for you, huh?
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much, Meathead, and we will speak soon.
You could follow PWR Today and anything Pro Wrestling Report related on Instagram and Facebook at PWR360 now, Twitter at PWR360, and our website for all your professional wrestling needs and podcasts is www.pwr360.com. You could follow myself, Andrew Baidala, at Ticket Drew on Twitter. WWE's Raw results from last night, 4/13. We had 3 Money in the Bank qualifiers. Asuka defeated Ruby Riott. Shayna Baszler defeated Sarah Logan. Nia Jax defeated Kairi Sane. Those 3 women have qualified for the Money in the Bank ladder match, which is scheduled to take place at the WWE Performance Center on the WWE Network. We also saw a slew of other singles matches, which has been a great change of pace for Monday Night Raw. We didn't have a bunch of video packages. We saw Aleister Black defeated Oni Lorcan. Austin Theory, who seems to be a main player on Monday Night Raw, defeated Akira Tozawa. Angel Garza defeated Tehoot Miles. Bobby Lashley defeated No Way Jose. The Viking Raiders defeated Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. Drew McIntyre in the main event defeated Andrade with an appearance by Seth Rollins, who curb stomped the WWE Champion, and seems as if McIntyre and Rollins are going to have a feud for the WWE Championship, which would be Drew's first real feud as a WWE champion on Monday Night Raw. We also saw the NXT Women's Champion Charlotte Flair address Io Shirai. That was the first time we've seen Charlotte since she won the NXT Women's Championship at WrestleMania 36. My name is Andrew Badala. Thank you for joining PWR Today for Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow with all of your professional wrestling news.